So, welcome everyone to the 83rd MLPDS live stream.
83rd Annual Hunger Games. Welcome. Be
Yeah,
fortunate to favor you all.
yeah. Sorry you all joined us. This is going to be interesting. I think the zombie's going to win, but that's just me. Well,
Oh,
I mean, you have a experienced background, but zombies, man, we've seen them take over entire countries, worlds. They just work well. Just, I just gotta find the people weaker than me so I can bite them first and let them join up. Numbers, man. Numbers. Anyway, 83rd live stream. Today I am joined by Masrick, uh,
hello.
and that's it. Everyone else is in transit to BronyCon. Brony.
Q Pencil Case, Allie, and Stranger are here too.
They,
As if we silent.
well, Allie's not here. Air Island is. That's his name. That's what we call them. Yeah. Everyone else is in transit to BronyCon or somewhere else. Moon? Moon? Probably Moon. I'm gonna go with Moon. Moon's always a safe answer. So, Master, you managed to hop onto the live stream or to the drop off?
Oh, we're good to go. Works here.
Sweet. Alrighty then, let's do this. First picture is from Blue Note. Blue Note, are you with us? Might have to ping them. One moment. They come to us from the drawing school thing. You know, our Discord. Come get some.
Yes, and for those listening in here or those on the Carta stream right now, if you have any pieces that you'd like to have critiqued or any questions or things like that, you're more than willing to put them up there. Throw them at Living Dead's face. I'll just watch and laugh. And yeah, put them up. We'd be more than happy to give you some critiques or thoughts or help you improve your work.
My
So,
face. Alright. So, Q Pencil Case has already given some critique. I suggest you hop over. Oh, yeah, there's a picture. She started up. Looks like a lot of focus on the limbs in that. But if you look at this style and it carries over to the poster style, so the limbs appear to be an actual choice on how they're designed with their sharp, pointy bits, as opposed to the normal rounded, marshmallowy hoofness of a pony. So I wouldn't worry about that. There is a little face construction I would look at. I think that's one thing I'd like to focus on. There's also the way everything is situated on the floor might need a little more looking at. It's just perspective angle changes on some objects. All these computers and stuff, they all appear to be just peachy and awesome, but then everything else moving over to here, ooh, that's a big pen, is just it's on a different angle. You see what I mean? So the face. I should not use blue on blue. Who's doing that?
we live and we learn.
Or you unlive. Because zombie. Always gonna come back to zombiehood.
Yeah, well,
Alright, so this is the base face circle thingy, head circle. We put the cross through it. The cross is used to help us locate the where we can bisect the face in half, both vertically and horizontally. This is nice for figuring out placement of muzzle and eyes and horn, and basically every other feature that sticks around the face. So, how I would correct this muzzle a bit is I would use the power of laying out the face like this. It looks like mine's slightly off from your positioning, but we'll just use it anyway. And I would lay out a box. So mare's muzzles stick below that halfway mark. They're actually on about the 3/4 mark. So if we're to split that face into thirds, they'd be on the bottom third. And the box method looks like this. Basically, you draw a 3D box on the face where the muzzle would go. Then you can draw a small one for where the jaw would go. And now we have an idea of what the space that muzzle would take up and the direction it points. So we can reduce this down into that minimalist sort of outline that the show often does for doing the face. What that would look like would be we take the muzzle down here, we go off to the side, we get a smile, and we got the bottom jaw. Now on the show itself, they often don't include the shape of the jaw sticking out on the shape of the face, but as an artist, you have the time to approach it as a 3D object. So it's sometimes beneficial for you to do this. You don't have to do it, but it is nice. As far as ear placement, you have it spot on. Woohoo, ears. But you should always make sure to draw in that second ear. Often it'll be covered up by a mane or something else, but you should still draw it in just in case it isn't, because little bits of it sticking over will totally appear. In this case, you have her mane pulled down quite a bit because vinyl does have a very short mane, so you'd actually get that second ear popping over top of that mane. Beyond that, I would look back at Cute Pencil Case's picture she drew for your legs, just for the little shoring up of the general shape of it. I mean, that pointy style is actually somewhat canon to the show when they do the very minimalist ponies. So yours is like it looks like to be a hybrid between the two, which is very cool to see. I really like it. Beyond that, what do I got here? Right, I was going to talk about the vinyls and stuff. When you're laying out your stage here for them to all be on, it can help creating that vanishing point to know where everything is going off to.
Yes, agree.
So if we're to do this and follow the line of where everything seems to be tilted, it'd be somewhere about right into that base, and we can use that to help place everything else on it. So it doesn't have to follow, like, not everything has to be square to that, but it has to be on the same plane. So now we've figured out the plane. So if we were to look at this stack of vinyls, we could see that it needs to tilt down more. And it'd do something like this. But, you know, not ugly. I'm always going to blame the application and not me. Anyway, that's the tilt I would be looking for. Just to try and match that. Does that make sense? Ah, yes, and Stranger Source is completely right. Don't forget there's an Eggy. Feel free to hop into the Eggy and draw along. It's like a group drawing platform. Everyone can hop in there and doodle at the same time. Your canvases all add together.
And it's a great way to work on what we're talking about here today, too.
Totally.
All right, so I have a few things I want to jump in on here as well. So The first thing is Living Dead kind of covered it with the perspective, the vanishing point, the horizon line, all that. I've been, since we started talking about your piece here, Blue Note, looking for an image. I can't find it because I used to reference it all the time for that, but since I can't find it, I'll just speak to it. So when you have a drawing or you have something that you're viewing, your eyes will naturally focus on a point or naturally focus on a component that makes it that center point here. And from there, it will make everything view just the way that the eye is built to naturally kind of fall from that image point. So you'll have a point there and everything kind of pulls out. Now that's going to be what's called perspective. You have a perspective that's being pushed out from a point or a line or a place that your body and your eye will perceive as an object or objects. Now that's both the use of space and non-space. So that's just the real rough me trying to say things here. Now the thing is with the horizon lines and all that, that's going to be where you kind of build your object to where those points will go. And you can create awesome scenes, kind of like we'll get into later on with a few of the other pieces that will better show this here, that really allows you to understand the concepts. So what I'd recommend is that you write down vanishing points, horizon lines, perspective, and look into those concepts. I'll try and give you some links later on as soon as I figure out where I put them, because I have like thousands. So I'll get back to that in a minute. But what I wanted to talk to is a few things here first. So let me put up some links in Picardo for you as well. I'm all tabbing everything here.
Alrighty.
Okay, so that's an image link to a drawing that another artist did here, kind of using it as an example to show you. So the first thing that comes to mind when I look at your character, I'm going to focus on the character first for vinyl here, is that hip that's kind of pushing out. Now, what I'm getting here is your anatomy, and the perspective of your anatomy is important to utilize. And you can build upon those concepts of the sphere that Living Dead drew right there. And you can pull that down to the rest of the body. Now you're using that 3 circles method, but I want you to try, instead of thinking of it as a 3 circles method, as a 3 sphere method. Most people think of it as a 2D surface on a 2D surface, which isn't wrong. It's not wrong at all. But what is good with it is that you're trying to create a 3-dimensional surface on a 2D surface using 2D surfaces. I can't think of my other word to use. So what you should do is be thinking about this in a 3-dimensional realm. So you can use those perspective lines, those horizon points and everything that Living Dead drew, and you can build that in. But then on top of that, by taking those 2D surfaces that you're drawing and thinking those as 3-dimensional, will allow you to better round those out, will better make them more of an actual shape to your mind's eye that you're trying to draw. And it will make it easier for you to create that anatomy and that concept. So what I want you to do as well is write this down too, is when you look at an image, I want you to go search out for anatomy and other things like that. And I'm going to give you some links here for a Google Doc compilation I'm still working on from different artists and their tutorials for all the different concepts and things like this that I'm talking to. So I'll get that in just a minute, but look into how you create a 3-dimensional surface from a 2D surface. And that's going to help you better understand how to make those curves, how to bring the body out even more logically in the way that you want and that you're trying to convey. And then 3, it's going to help you with your shading there, which it's awesome to see that you're trying to introduce shading and lighting. That's fantastic. So I really like that you're doing that. But when we get looking at how surface shapes will be affected more so by lighting, that can better help you convey that light and shadow concept to your components, especially when you make them more 3-dimensional. And I'm going to put up an image here in Picardo again for you on that. As soon as I get to the right one. There we go. All right, there you go. So that image right there deals with light and shadow. And I want to put that up here first and foremost, kind of help you understand a bit more about how that will affect shapes. Now, this is This is a cube. It's not a circle or a sphere, of course, but it can help you get a better idea about how the light will hit certain shapes from certain distances and locations. And you can look into different things like that for more references to give you a better understanding and foundation to utilizing that. Now, I would definitely recommend taking a look at that. And then the other thing that comes to mind here is actually comic drawing. So layout and composition is an important thing for you that I would say would help you jump 10 steps above what you already have here. And by understanding layout and composition, I would definitely recommend going back to how you draw comics and comic paints. Now, I know this is not what you're doing, granted, okay? I'm not saying do it or not. I'm just saying that look at the examples given by comics and how they draw different pages, papers, and different views as the story progresses. They change, they have those vanishing points, they bring in action, they move from one way to another. Understanding how they do that can better help you come back to a three-dimensional realm like here that you're trying to convey in this piece and be able to create that as you want to. And comics do a great option in allowing you to better understand how that works. So I would look into the foundation of comic drawing as well, and the process about how comics are drawn from certain points and such. And that's going to give you a whole lot better perspective about how to do perspective and how to make a layout on a piece. And if you want, I can give you some links and ideas for that too. That's kind of the major stuff right there. As to the rest of the piece here, so I'm not just talking ideas and things. So what you have for your computer, like the one thing I absolutely love about your piece here is your lighting. Your lighting you do extremely well, especially for what you have so far with your piece. Now, fantastic start. It's a fantastic start here. And I really love what you do on that back wall where you push that light out to the back wall. That is fantastic. So you're doing that great already. But I want you to look at where the light is emanating from with your objects too. Now, one thing that lighting will do is as light comes from a source, the original source or the areas closest to the source will be the most lighted. And you're doing that so far. You're starting that out, but that also means that they're going to be sometimes the most detailed, or if the light is too much coming off there, the least detailed. So now what we need to work on is how the objects are represented, not just with light and dark, but in their composition and in their detail. So you can take those concepts and bring those to 1, your character, 2, your surrounding scene, and 3, to your emanating light source. And that's going to help you better convey the lights, the darks, and the atmosphere of your piece, not just to show the light in the dark, but to convey all the surrounding scenery. And I know Q Pencil Case can definitely talk to that as well, because she does that in a lot of her pieces too. So overall, what I'd say is here you have an extremely good start. And I mean, there's a lot more I could go into, and I'm going to get you those links in just a sec. But I think what you have is a decent foundation to begin. And I like how you are emphasizing and introducing a number of different pieces into your drawing, because a lot of people will be very simple. There's nothing wrong with that. It just shows that you're thinking about all these different components and concepts and bringing in different shapes and techniques and ideas into what you do. And that is fantastic. You're not going small, you're going big. And you're trying to introduce more of a life into your image here by showing each one of those different things in it. So, I mean, you have your computer, you have your keyboard, you have your glasses, you're working on your lighting on how those glasses will go off, your headphones. I think that's a stack of magazines in the back there. I can't see with the green on it anymore, but
Vinyl records.
Thank you. That you have all these different elements in there, and that is fantastic. Keep working on that. The goal is to create a view of life. It's not just to create something. It's to create a component of life so that when the viewer looks at it, they understand it, saying, oh, this is this. Now I understand a bit more about this, and I understand the whole scene. You're trying to create scenes of life rather than just one basic thing. And I think that's pretty awesome. So continue doing that. That's a strong point of yours. Just continue working on fleshing it out and building off a perspective point. You do that, it's going to show the three-dimensionality of it far better. It's going to allow you to improve your scenes. It's going to make your composition better. It's going to make everything just work out 10 times better than what you already have. So good job so far. Keep working on it, and I'll get you that link in a moment. All right, that's my short version.
All right, so this this salmon coloring going on here. Cute Pencil Case would just like to quickly talk about, or she brought up a few points about what's going on with the fluff you've added. So we love fluff. Fluffy ponies are awesome. Just she would just like to let you keep in mind, or help you keep in mind, that hair flows with itself. It doesn't just sort of scatter every which direction like some type of craziness most days. Some days, unless if you get out of the shower. Anyway, generally you should keep a hair flow together. So what she's done is she's made the ears flow upwards, so we can see all the fluff moving up with it, because it's moving with it. And then on the cheeks, it would be more affected by gravity, so it's being pulled down. And then you have, for instance, the fluff coming off the butt. That would be following the fur that follows along the back, and that tends to curl backwards. Same idea with the elbows and stuff. It just keep the flow going.
I would agree with that. Definitely agree with that. I love all the pink lines coming off the head right there. It looks almost like a lion a bit. I like that. I think it's kind of funny.
Do you have any further questions?
Okay, while we wait for any further questions here, I put a link in the Picardo chat for you, Blue Note, as for everyone else there if they'd like. It's a reference compilation from different artists with their different tutorials for drawing ponies and such. And I provide there for you to kind of get a better idea from different references, understandings about how people do things, or so on and so forth, so you can work on those concepts we kind of talked about, at least in the pony form of it. And there's other things in there that I definitely recommend taking a look at. I know at the bottom, I also included Rattlecat shading and line art tips. And right there, when we talk about viewing light and viewing dark and all that, you can take a look at those and see how that will affect from everything from shading and depth to just how thick the lines are. And that can help you improve upon what you already have, especially since the big part of this is lighting and shadow. So I would definitely take a look at that. And I also made it commentable. So if you have any comments about how to improve it, I write it down on there. And as time progresses, I'll definitely add and amend things to improve that. But all that stuff is their own artists respectively. I just added my own writings to each one to kind of explain it. So take a look at that. I think that will help you a lot.
All right, we're going to move on to the next one. And that is going to be this one, just above it. Whoop, apparently there's an invert button now. Do not hit C.
Nice. All right, so I'll start on this one here. Just to kind of explain back to Blue Note what we were talking about with perspective. Now, this is more of a extreme view of perspective drawing right here. So when we were talking about using perspective from vanishing points and horizon lines and all that stuff, this is kind of what we were alluding to here, is to bring a bit of this element into your piece. And I think that that's one thing that this artist has done well, is showing that perspective in their drawing. So take a bit of that concept and bring it back into what you do, and I think that you can improve upon what you have. So that's all I want to say to start out.
So this artist is Artemis Plum, and they've submitted it via the art channel on our Discord.
Hey.
Hey, there's Artemis.
Yep.
Here you are having issues with the stream. That's all right.
Yeah, something with my internet connection or something, but it seems to work right now. So.
Okay. Well, if you have any further issues, it will be uploaded later.
Yeah, sure.
So heavy on the perspective on this one. Your city looks cool. But are you planning on adding a lot of texture to these buildings? And it looks like you've started with some texture on the ground, but it's not quite there yet.
Yeah, it's supposed to be finished, actually, so I probably won't add anything to this one, but
all right.
Yeah.
Then my biggest suggestion, at least right off the bat, is texture and variety. right now this looks like I walked into the housemaker's house where they're just getting it ready to sell. Everything is painted white or very soft off color whites, so it's easy for someone to repaint. Because all these booths are they're just white tarps laid out, and the walls are just very light grays. Not much variation in what's going on. As if you go look at the MLP, like whenever they show the canter lot, it's a bright, colorful place, despite the fact that the ponies living there are sometimes a little snooty, a little snotty, a little uptight. But it still has a lot of like gold trimming and sort of bright, colorful roofs and some interesting features going along. And you have these. You've given it the onion topped points there, and we have more over here, and then you have the other Casley pointy. I don't know what those are called. Witches hats? No. Anyway, you've done some nice variation on the designs of buildings. I would just like to try and push you to do more variations on the colors and textures going on the outside. And the same thing with these booths. Giving some variation to how they look would probably be beneficial for even the shopkeepers.
Yep. I've kind of been lazy on these shops because...
And that's fair.
Bronicon after that and wanted to finish it before that. I'm not exactly sure how I could have added some more interesting stuff on them. Maybe I don't know name of shops.
So giving them like well, actually, here's what you're gonna do, because you're going to Bronicon, right? That's what I heard.
Yep.
You're gonna here's your assignment. Go walk around the merchants hall. Yeah, that's the name of it, and go look at how everyone sets up their booths, because everyone sets it up different to try and attract the customers. You're gonna see the hilarious variations that people set out there, and like the way people use bright objects, bright colors to try and pull you over towards them, along with laying them out. So they're all working off the same table, right? Everyone has the same identical table. They either have one booth or two table wide. That's what they get. Look how they vary that just based on the original footprint. That might help you. I mean,
I'll agree. We definitely will.
Yeah, so they are supposed to be closed in this drawing because it's night and stuff. But yeah.
Sure, but if you're putting up like a big stand or something, these look like they're more permanent than temporary style things.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Just throwing some variations out there might be nice. Like
one thing I would say is while you're doing that, because that's going to be an absolutely fantastic example for this piece alone, and a lot of other things for perspective, take pictures while you do it, because you can learn so much from the pictures as to how everything's set up, and then more so how crowds work. Because let's say this was a daytime scene, then if it was a daytime scene, you're going to be seeing ponies everywhere, you're going to be seeing crowds, and you're going to draw what you absolutely love, crowd scenes, because crowd scenes are the best thing ever to draw. So yeah, the pain and the horror of that. But you also get a better idea about how to draw all the different goods on the tables or things like that, or different decorations, especially anything varied. It's never just going to be the same. So that will give you a far better idea about how to create each one of those things. And as you go back further, how detailed it will be and how to design it as you go back. So take pictures, definitely do that. And if you could, I definitely work on the surrogate, because I think you will get a lot from it on how to create that.
Work on what? Sorry, I didn't understand quite well. So last thing.
Work on creating more variety to what you're doing.
Okay, yeah.
So this cloud directly in the top end of the picture, that looks, it's got some good depth to it, because we see, well, it's got an advantage because it's got chopped off, right? We don't see how it's going to abruptly stop. But the one following it seems flat. It seems like a piece of cardboard tossed up there. like it's part Paper Mario or something. If we want to try and give it more of that depth going to it, my suggestion is vary how the bottom goes. So I know on a storm cloud in a distance, it's going to look like the bottom's chopped, because that's how a lot of them form, is they actually gain a pretty smooth-ish flat bottom. Sure, there's variations when you get close, but at a distance you aren't going to notice that. This one doesn't feel that far away, and if it is, holy cow, big cloud out of nowhere. But because it does appear to be what's supposed to be a smaller cloud just sort of drifting by, I would vary up its bottom just a bit more. And even on the inside of the cloud, vary it up. And that's hopefully going to drive out a bit more depth. If you'd also play with the shading you've done, just to give it a few darker edges around these corners, just give it just some darkness going to it, because it's going to have more shape that way. That might help. I would also add another cloud or two as it gets further down, like in this. Why do I keep using green for everything? Drop something over here too, further down. Just don't make it seem like the clouds suddenly stop. Might help break up that area back there.
One thing I'd also add to that is your windows don't just have to be like, I like the blur that you like, the glare off the windows. That's fantastic. Do that. That's good. But that doesn't mean that you're not able to show things behind there too, because sometimes with the light or the glow behind the scenes, there may be other objects or at least shadows of something behind there, or a bit darker of an area because there's things in there. Oftentimes either there'll be something on the windowsill, or there may be a pony in the background, or there's just going to be more life than just a open window or a zombie hiding in the window right there. But you're able to show that, and Q Pencil Case is actually jumping on my next topic there with the materials. And man, thinking alike, I love this. But the materials of the walls and such. So as you see more light, you see more detail. You see more things there. It defines the area around it. So with that glow, it's not just a glow, but you're going to be seeing maybe some of the brick, if it's made of brick, if it's made of cardboard or a styrofoam or drywall, which is a pain to put up for ceilings as well. And then you're going to be seeing a bit of the detail there. Don't be afraid to bring that out. The darker areas, probably not as much, but you'll see more shadows and darks. The light areas, more glare, but you'll see some of the detail as well. And you can bring that into the surrounding areas. The Q Pencil Case is just jumping on what I'm jumping on. This is awesome. It's just like by the time I get to that, she's already drawn. I love it. But I'm going to give you a plus later. But so you can bring that out, not just in doing a glow on top of it, but to the surrounding view of the image. There's going to be more to it. So don't be afraid to do that. The white highlighting right there definitely is going to be a thing. Use your light sources. Don't just glow the light sources, use them. They're going to be in your scene more than just showing a glow to them. Use the light sources, and they'll be a factor into your scenery. And then so take the concept of what you're doing with the moon on the sidewalk or the walkway there, bring that out to everything else, kind of like CPC's been drawing. And I'm not sure if that's a little Pikachu in the window now, but show a bit more to your scene. Don't be afraid to show more is what we're getting at.
Just a random question like this. Should I do checklists? I mean, like, I thought about the highlights at first, but I forgot about it. I don't know.
If it helps. Yeah, if you find yourself forgetting things, write out a checklist for art.
Agreed.
Okay.
So one thing I would do is I like to have a board filled with art inspiration and all that stuff, or different designs, different concepts, or tutorials I find and all that. And I keep it up, and I like to refer back to it every so often, or kind of look through it, because it will spark different ideas. Write things down. Like when you create, it's a mess of a process. It's a chaotic harmony in itself. And you write things down, change things up, add things, get rid of things. One of the great things about you doing digital is it's not traditional. I love traditional. I'm a traditional artist myself, but not being traditional means you can change things at whim, and you're not worried about losing stuff unless you don't save. So, i.e., save every 5 minutes. But yeah, you know what I mean. But joking aside, like, try different things. things. Write the different things down here. CPC is saying that they have a sticky note next to their desk with a list of things to check in the end. Agreed. Yeah, I have 2 things of sticky notes right next to me right here. And I have 2 notepads right next to me, and I have a whole host of other things. Like, make it your own. You don't have to copy what you see. You don't have to just go from nothing. Make it your own process as you go, and don't be afraid to change things up as you go too. It leads oftentimes to something that's even better. And where is it? Also, there's another thing here. One of my favorite MLP comics. I'm going to link you to the start, and I highly recommend, if you have not read this, read it. 1, because it's an awesome comic, and then 2, because the scenes and the drawing is just fantastic, and you can get a lot of understanding and perspective from this comic, especially as you get into the later chapters. So take a look at that. It's by the artist Draco J. Product. If you want to say project every time. Love his art, love his design, and his concepts he brings into his own MLP story. So I love the history and the lore, but I absolutely love what he does with the designs and the creation to each one of the comic pages. Now, I think you can learn a lot from him, and use an understanding as you study from him as to how he does his stuff. I think you'll learn a lot. So I'm sure it will help you.
Okay.
But yeah, as to that, I'm not really sure what else to say. I mean, don't be afraid to show detail in the flooring as well. Where that light hits, there may be a bit more detail in the gravel. And kind of like what we talked about with the clouds in the back, that Living Dead circled in red there, you can do a same to that walkway, whatever material it is. I don't know, but if you want to make a certain material, you can do that. And as you hit more of the light, or as you get closer, you can do more with that as well. And then as you hit the shadow, you can do less. So you can make more shadows. You can make it more of what you want to make it. So don't be afraid to test it out with different materials. And don't be afraid to use references and resources for that. Like the best example we can give is researching materials and resources and references out there for this stuff. So if you have a question about it, do some research. Look at, what does this look like in the light and dark? How do people draw this? How does this work? And then experiment with it. Make a second drawing of this drawing here, and make that experimental copy for yourself, where that's the one where you're not doing completion or anything, but you're experimenting on it. So you're drawing all these different things we're talking about. You're taking from that, you're creating new things. And then if you like something or it works out, you're like, oh, this makes sense. Then you can do that on your original one, and you still have your work copy. So that's one of my pieces of advice I give to you. Don't be afraid to make work copies of your work, because then you can improve and mess that up as much as you want, and then come back to your original one and change things if you want from there.
All right, you got any further questions?
I don't think so.
All right.
Thank you.
Well, I look forward to seeing you at BCon.
Yeah, sure.
Take pictures.
Oh, I will. And I invite everyone to hop into the Picarto again. Picarto. Or Eggy. Not the Picarto. You're in the Picarto. Hop in the Eggy. Draw a pony. Or 12. Or like 12 rare potatoes.
Oh, that's going to be a theme.
Walking along carrying your pony.
Yes, also rare potatoes.
Anywho, on to the next pick. We're gonna do... Whoops. That was the wrong window. We're gonna do this big one. Purple pony. Purple Pony is by Lucardo. And it's still working with new expressions. Thoughts? So there's not much going on here. The hairstyle is very interesting. I've never seen
ponytails.
Well, I mean, the ponytail looks awesome. Not enough ponytails on ponies, but the like Neapolitan style ice cream of the hair, where it's going laterally instead of horizontally for colors. That's interesting. I haven't seen that often. Anything's possible in Pony Universe. They're ponies. not much to say about anything that isn't really that. The muzzle. Just be careful where your nose holes are, because they should be level with the rest of your muzzle. Now, expressions. Let's talk expressions. Go onto our subreddit. Here, let's do this together. We're gonna open up a brand new shiny window of our subreddit here. Whee! We're gonna go /r/MLP Drawing School. And you're gonna scroll your butt down, and you're gonna click on beginner guides. Wait a moment. Bi-weekly challenges. There it is. And you're gonna look for the expressions. We have a few expression challenges. This is the first one. It was the 5th bi-weekly challenge. It has this lovely expression sheet, along with examples of expressions, and then examples other people have posted of expressions. You can find a whole lot of these expression sheets around. My suggestion, go search up a few of these, and you're going to try and recreate as many expressions as you can using this sheet. The reason I say use this sheet is because it will help you have a quick guideline of what you're aiming for. So do happy. Go look for a reference of happy, remake happy, or go hold up a mirror and smile into that mirror. And there's the happy expression you're going to try and draw. You're just going to run through as many as you feel fit. Personally, I go through all of them at least once, twice if you can. Once is, a pretty awesome goal though. Going through them is great. It will help build up that repertoire of your expressions, and then go compare your expressions to other artists if you're getting stuck, because that will be your reference. They will very much help. You'll find a whole lot of them already done for you. Yeah, and that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, additionally, to tag on to what he said, do exactly that, but you can come back to this expressions challenge sheet that you make, and that's going to be your reference for going forward in the future. So, it's not just to do it, but then you can utilize that as your baseline reference as you go forward into the future on how to create expressions again. And what I'd also recommend is get on your search engine, type in MLP pony expressions references, and you're going to get hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of charts and sheets out there, different expressions that you can understand how they're developed from. And I would definitely recommend doing that, because that's going to be a very strong baseline to, 1, how you create the sheet, and then 2, on understanding on how the expressions will look and be looked at from different perspectives. Because an expression is not just from one end, it's from all ends that you'll be able to view it. So from the side, from the top, from different angles, be thinking about that. And especially when you try expressions, do that from different angling as well, because that's going to make a big difference. And it's also going to improve your design and everything else and how you construct those into the future, because your goal is to become more dynamic with what you do. It's not just to be doing it from a side profile. Do the side profile 50,000 times, be really good from that side profile when you draw, but then nothing else is good. You can do one thing well, but nothing else. You want to be a jack of all trades, master of none. You don't want to be a master of one trade and nothing else, because then you're not able to do anything else. So bring that concept into this. Be more dynamic as you do these things. Try to jump out. It's going to look horrible, but if you do that, I guarantee you will learn from it and improve, because you're making 3D objects and you're trying new things, and it's going to help you tremendously. So that was my little spiel about the reference sheets and all that stuff. But yeah. So back to the other one here. I would definitely be considering looking at anatomy with your muscular and your skeletal structures as well, because 1, that's going to help you with your expressions, but 2, it's going to help to highlight those different bumps and existing features on your pony or their head as well, because there's going to be more to it. I mean, you're going to have stuff for the eyes, you're going to have different components for the, especially the ridges and the brow of the pony. And as you turn the head around or from different views and angles, you're going to see more of the neck or less of the neck, or you're going to see muscles straining or bulging. When you get into expressions, that's going to either bring that out more or make it less, depending on what you do. So understanding where each of those components exist as will help you in building your expressions, but then also help you in building your pony. I'm not sure what else to say really, but if we go back to your pony head that you drew here, the other thing that comes to mind looking at the hair is it's an interesting style with the horizontal striping. One thing I do have kind of a question about though, because I'm a bit confused on its perspective. So let's say if your pony head here, if you're from the perspective of the pony, turning the head to the left, so that way the hair on this side here becomes more viewable. How is it viewed? I don't know. Looking at this here, I don't know how that's going to be viewed. Does it follow the head around more, or is it kind of like just a stripe down the side of the head? I mean, we could take guesses, but I don't know. And that's all right. That's the way you want to do it. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm just saying here that when you draw an image, when you create perspective, one of the things you want to take into effect is making this three-dimensional. That's what you're doing. Taking a side profile view of this is a good first step, but it's also a complicated first step because it's hard to understand what's trying to be developed for the perspective of this being a sphere. So this is not just a half shape or anything like that, it's an actual sphere. So you want to be taking that lining around, and I'm drawing this with a mouse, so this is horrible, bear with me. Yeah, that's a circle. We're going to call that a circle. But as you go around, be thinking about this as a three-dimensional object here, where draw out those back lines as well. Make them dotted if you want. Draw this out so that way you're viewing it like that. But then as you come across with the hair or the mane here, be thinking about that too. Where does that connect? How far does that go out? Does that come out straight? Does that come out to the side? If it comes out to the side like this, then are you going to have any more things or features or whatnot showing? This is absolutely horrible. So you have no room to say that anything about your stuff is horrible, because I'm doing an absolutely bad job right now. But yeah, you can bring those concepts in here and show them. I'm going to erase that because it's horrible. But don't be afraid to take those concepts out there and show them. But always be thinking about this as if it was a three-dimensional image. And that's going to help you improve what you have a lot. And then also you can look at where the ear is positioned, because if this was three-dimensional, that ear position here is going to be altered slightly. So just take a look at that. Be considering where each of these things will be located, especially on the references and studies that you do on other people's art pieces and all that, and tutorials. So definitely look into that. As for the ponytail, I really like this. I think your ponytail here, you do extremely well. And I like how you push this into the back of the hair, and that kind of disappears because it holds in the back here. So that's good. Keep that up, but follow that through with the rest of your hair here. If you do that, I think that you're going to improve what you have, especially when you hit this bottom piece here. And that's going to clear block confusion, for me at least. And yeah, you'll be able to better highlight all your design features and do even more. And I think that you'll find that you'll have a lot easier time in constructing and then reconstructing this as you progress further. And that's all I really have to say.
All right. Shall we move on to the next one? Unless they aren't going to have any further questions because they aren't here right now. Silly me. All right, we're going to move on to the last picture, unless if anyone else has any other art they'd like to submit. Feel free to submit it at any time, by the way. All right, here we are. It's the picture just below. This picture is by Stamus, and their post is, "It's rather difficult to clean a Pegasus's home when you're an earth pony. Does your anatomy make sense?"
So I'm looking at your different anatomy and your points here for your ponies. And one thing off the bat I'll say I really like is you trying to create motion. I can see that in your forelegs, and this is not writing. I guess I can't talk and write at the same time. That's new. Anyways, so I like the motion that you're conveying in your front hooves of the pony rather than sweeping. That's good. And it's a great way that you can translate that into comics or expression or anything else further. So fantastic job on that. Keep going. Those motion lines you have are what really show that. So continue to work on that. And you might want to think about slightly blurring those connecting lines, because if you show a bit of less definitive shaping in the central portions of those forehoofs where they're viewing down and up, then that's going to make it easier for you to say, oh, wait, this is the same shape. It's just moving really fast. And you convey that sense of motion rather than them being separate shapes. Because the more definition you have, the more it seems like it's a tangible object, and that's what the object is. It has that cutoff point. The less definition you have, the more that you say, oh, this is blurred, but maybe this is conjoining. Maybe this is flowing or moving, and you bring in that sense of movement and momentum. So great start. Just continue working on that motion, and that will help you there. And yeah, as for your design there, I think you're doing a good start with your head for the pony, especially with trying to develop that muzzle from different angles. Continue to work on that. Try and define out that left part of the muzzle that kind of connects off to, it seems like it connects to nothing. Continue to define that where the rest of the nose would be, and maybe once you get to lighting and shading, that's going to help in defining that further. But as you do that, that's also going to help in to lock in that shape, especially with your pony there kind of clutching that broom. So that should help you to improve that concept and into your expressioning of your pony as well. So what I'd really like to see with you, with one of the first things that you work on here, is actually your expression. I know you're not done yet, so don't take me as thinking you're complete or anything. But as you work on your expressioning, I'd really like to see what you do with that, because I think you can bring a lot to this piece as you develop expressions. And it could be just a few simple lines, or you could do more. But when you do your expression will bring a lot to your piece and what the pony is doing. So I feel that you can continue to work on that, and I do look forward to seeing what you do there. As for your scene, I like how you actually draw out the different landscaping of the scene here. So, like I said, I know you're not finished. Keep working on that, because I really want to see what you do next here and what you bring about with that floor. Because I can see that you're sweeping something. I don't know what you're sweeping or how you're sweeping. So I know that's CPC and Living Dare drawing that in. So flow off that, because I think you can bring in some awesome concepts and some unique stuff that hasn't been done yet, in especially how you develop that floor of, I'm assuming this is like a cloud resonance. And other than that, the other big thing that kind of popped into my mind firsthand was actually that pony statue on the left there at keypad 7. So what comes to mind with that is those back rear legs. So looking at that there, I'm seeing that you're using some construction techniques and some lining. That's fantastic. I looked at that and I saw that first and I was like, yes, she, I apologize, but you, I'm not sure which, but you are using construction lines, and that is fantastic. Do that, keep doing that, keep construction techniques, work on improving your construction techniques, because that's going to help you tremendously in everything. And then also your perspective with those rear legs. So look at your perspective, try drawing ponies from different perspectives, because as you change perspective, your pony definition will change as to how you draw each component from this angle. And those back rear legs are a good start, but they feel a bit warped and closed in. So what I would recommend is taking a look at those back rear legs here and defining where that comes down. So that way it shows. This is horrible drawing this with a mouse, but I hope you get what I'm trying to get at. Where it doesn't just continue off to make a complete shape like that. It doesn't just make a circular or oblong shape. It actually kind of closes itself, only partially. So that way it shows that the shape is still one, and it continues. And this is not letting me write while I talk. But do that and improve there. And one that's going to help you with your shape by itself, but two, it's going to help you with your ponies overall as you get to your pony who's sweeping, and then any of the perspective of additional ponies or other things as you continue on. Because I think that there's a lot that you can improve in your perspective, but it's only going to come from practice. So you have a good start here. It's a good start. The question now is, how do you go from here? And then what do you study to help you understand those concepts? So continue looking at art studies, continue looking at tutorials, and if you have any questions, you can continue to ask us that, and I'll be more than happy myself to give you those reference ideas to where to look at. But continue there, and I think that you're going to have a good start to character development. And then as for your scenery and layout, I have nothing to say there. You're starting to use different concepts and experiment with things. Just continue working on the perspective, like we said, and we talked to vanishing points and horizon lines earlier on in the stream. Kind of refer back to what we said there and some of the examples and things that we talked about. And I think that taking that into your drawing here is going to help you tremendously as well. So yeah, that's what I got to say.
All right. So I have just done. We've been looking over the body a little bit to try and focus on this for our side, and I've just redrawn the body because yours appears as though they're very stiff and flat across the back, but it also appears they're being lifted by a balloon. If we go and look at some other derivative arts where it's like Pinkie Pie being lifted by the balloon, often they'll put a big curve in the body, and this makes sense because all your weight's pulled onto that center. For you to plank while being lifted by the center of your body, you would have to have some crazy strong muscles to keep that up for a while. So relaxing their body and letting it sag up towards the middle makes a lot more sense in the context of trying to do this without killing yourself. So that's the second picture. We can see it's sagged on the middle because the front of the body has dropped down here. And we also have the front of the body, or the back of the body, drooped down, and the highest point is where this middle is coming off of. Why am I still using that color? There. Highest point is up there. That's going to work, hopefully, a little bit better for trying to give it that not stressed out feeling to them. As far as the legs, or for the back legs, it looks like you're trying to kick them really hard to the side, but if they're floating on this balloon and they're trying to flail around like they're sort of swimming in the air, I think it would make more sense if they aren't quite as hard kicked off to the side. So I've just pulled them back in a little bit. And it looks like Cute Pencil Case has just tried to redraw your arms a little bit so they follow the axes of the body. We can see that she's tilted the horizon on your body, so it's no longer 90 degrees to the image. It's now like this. And she's made the arms follow that line. And then she's given them little flappy, flaily arms. And feel free to do this where it's more than one arm drawn in. Very common in cartoons and comics, where they'll actually draw them in like you have with two sets, and then the little lines between them to sort of indicate that that high-speed movement that's going on. Octopus. Yes, it's Octopony. There you go. I really have nothing more to say about the body there. It does look like it's a work in progress, so the things like ears and that are all missing right now. But it does. I have seen your completed art, and it does all appear in there in the later renditions. So yeah, that's all the notes I got on this one. Cute Pencil Case, you got any more? No? Okay. How about you there? Other voices coming in my head.
Voices.
The voices. That's you.
I don't have anything else to say I need to do, but now we need to see a Dr. Octopus Pony now. Dr. Octopony.
Alright, if anyone else has any art, please feel free to throw it at others. and we'll accept and critique it. And if we don't get anything in the next few minutes, then we're going to call it an end to the stream. At least this week. We should be back next week, but please stand by and keep an eye on the subreddit and the Discord. And one of them will tell you if we're back.
We're right at an hour too. Surprisingly, that lasted exactly an hour.
I see an hour and 5 seconds right now of recorded time. Oh, it looks like they've done a little corrections to the image. Have you seen their correction? Blue Note's posted in voice chat.
Hey, awesome. Yeah, show us. I'd love to see the corrections here. We can talk.
Go to voice chat. It's in our Discord. You'll see the corrections. So they've just shored up the shadows a little bit.
Awesome. There's Lolden Arts. It's been forever since I've heard from you or seen you here. Good to see you. Yeah, if you have something, put it up. We're more than happy to take a look at it.
By the way, I suggest everyone hops onto this Eggy and draws on the Eggy, because the Eggy is awesome. Draw together. It's fun, I swear. Do it. Do it. Friendship. Do it. Friends.
Yeah, Rabrick put it up as well here. Let's take a look at everything. All right. Well, first up, awesome to see some of the changes that you're making, Blue Note. You're definitely hitting on the right start there. So I'm glad to see that you're touching things up. Continue on that because you're right on the direct path of what we're talking about.
Just gotta edit these 2 images. It's holy resolution, Batman. Pasted on the wrong layer.
All right, Raverick, I'll talk to a bit more what you're saying there once we get to your piece, but definitely look to your lighting source, where the light's coming from, and that's going to help you dictate to where the darkness is going to be situated more so, as well as how thick everything is. But we'll talk to that in a bit.
Alright, so first up on this one is Lula Moon Arts. And holy cow, that is some wonderful face.
So I'm really liking the expression work on your piece here.
I gotta ask, is this background just pasted from the show, or did you draw this?
All right, that makes sense.
So, what CPC is talking about is the magic of atmospheric fading, atmospheric occlusion. I think that's the name.
Yep.
As stuff goes away from you, the atmosphere, or everything between us, which is mostly air, it actually causes stuff to become blurry and distant and not quite as clear and tints blue, oddly enough. So this, we'd go over it and just, I would actually just turn up its opacity a little bit, because you say it's a vector pasted in that case, easy. Hopefully it's on a different layer, and you'll just turn up its opacity just a bit, just so it fades ever so slightly into the background. If you go look at mountains, you'll see a lot of it, where as the mountains go further back, they become tinted more and more with this blue haze in front of them. You can also throw a darkening layer on it first and then do that. That might help too. Really like.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of backscattering or using lasers, to where you have attenuation as it goes through the atmosphere. It will scatter the beam, so that way it takes either more power or a higher focus in order to go farther or have the desired effect. So think about that attenuation when you draw, or how light is being viewed, because the more material it has to go through, even if it is a gas, the harder it is to view from longer distances. And then factor in, if it's too far, factor in the rotation of the planet or whatnot, or et cetera, et cetera. But that's getting more into other things.
So I've rounded out the hawk just a little bit, because the only reason a hawk is formed is because there's a bone pushing there, and the bones tend not to be sharp and pointy objects. So I just round that out a little bit more. Now, there is something that's confusing me about the construction of the head. You've placed the ears really high up on it, which is fine. That's a creative choice. But then you've completely left out the other one. If we're to make the other ear as tall as this one, it would definitely be popping over the top of the head, because your hair is, or your face is very horizontal to the image, so it's actually matching the horizon of it. At least the angle of your face. It is pointing down, but that's fine, because that's not going to change how we see that other ear. So just make sure to include that. Now, your choice of making this wing stick up, what's the reasoning behind there? Because right now what it looks like is you've just taken the wing that's here and just rolled it a few degrees upwards. And that doesn't quite make sense to me on how it's placed. I mean, maybe the body's rocking towards one side or the other, but even then it would either be pushed out a little bit like a chicken wing, or I don't know, pushed down. And now we wait 30 seconds for the information to finally receive them, because yay latency.
Like spikes. Anyways, yeah, with the wings kind of jump on that too. It looks like you've positioned, best way I could say is like a backpack on top of RD here, with the wings on or in the backpack. So it looks like the wings are on top of the body rather than part of the body, and just kind of flows through with the suit there. So that's just kind of what I'm viewing here. It just looks like it's on top rather than part. So what you could do is kind of bring that down to join a bit more of the body there into that area, and then do that, follow that on the same one. Oh, that was interesting. It actually creates lines on the other side too. So it just comes down to how much is viewable and then where you have that position, because typically the wings, with much of the anatomy so far that a lot of people have done, for MLP have been part of the shoulder blades or part of the back in itself, but on their own joints, so that they're more of wings rather than kind of tacked on the back in the look. So just kind of what it views as to me. But yeah, the wings are a tough part for me as well. So I personally understand what you're saying there. Is still something I'm always working on too. But I would definitely recommend looking at, like, if you were to take this pony in 3D, remove the wings, and then remove the tail and the hair, how would it look in a three-dimensional form? So if you put in all your construction lines, if you had spheres in there, and then you try to draw the back in, and you tried to look at this from a different perspective. So if you took this and looked from a upwards down perspective, what would it look like from then? Because looking at the wings and then looking at the tail are kind of the 2 points that throw me off. It's almost like a impossible shape, if you may. I think that may be a good way for me to explain it. It's kind of like an impossible shape where on a 2D surface, it looks possible, but then when you look at it more closely, especially in a 3D realm, it looks impossible because you cannot recreate it here in reality. It's only possible to create in a 2D realm. And that's kind of what it looks like with the wing right there, as well as the tail to me, where you have the body positioned one way, and then you have the other part of the body positioned in a completely other way that looks almost impossible to create. And so think about that from the different angles of view with your perspective. So take this from the up perspective, take this from the other side. How would it look from those different areas? And if you understand how it looks from those different areas, then you're able to recreate it in the design here that you want. And that's a concept here actually that we deal with pilots with a lot. It's called spatial orientation. So the perspective with spatial orientation is an important concept, one for pilots and aircrew to understand, because it allows an individual to understand the rotation, the direction, the momentum, the movement, as well as what the object is from a certain point of view. If you only have a second to tell something, you need to be able to orient that understanding within your mind, so that way you can effectively do the job and make the decisions necessary with the information you have. And so that's why orientation, but perspective, is also important in this case. And it's definitely an area that you can improve on. Like, you do it well in the front. I'm looking at your front hooks and all that, and like, fantastic job there. I think you have this concept down. It's just carrying it over to the rest of your opponent. And once you're able to do that, then there's nothing that I could say. Like, you got it. So just take the concept from the beginning part of your body, factor that and throw it into the rest as you continue to move back. And as you move back with that concept, you'll be able to improve upon everything overall. And then you got an 8. But yeah, I would agree with the back legs though. Like, that back hidden leg on the back right, I think is good. There's nothing I could really say there, but that back left one that's visible, there's definitely areas of improvement that could be made. So continue working on the perspective, because I think once you get the rest of your body in line for perspective, that's going to flow down into your leg there, and then you're going to understand that, and it won't be a problem. So I think that's more of a symptom rather than the issue. So I think that the wings, your back, and then your spine. So follow your spine down, your pony, as you construct into that tail, and that will solve your tail problem. And then that will help you with the wings and their positioning. And that will also help you in your perspective with the back and the back ends of that third circle sphere area for your pony, with the plot area. And then you got that made right there. And it's just following that perspective back. And then view that from a different angle and look at your different angles and how that views. And then that could help you solve your wing issue as well, and help you better understand about positioning of wings. So definitely research into wings, on how those would be positioned into the rest of the body. And that should also help you with your perspective there in your spine area. But I do like your clothing design though. How you do clothing, and then also how you do your wraps right there. I think that's good. I especially like how you do the overlapping concept to show some of the chaos and how it overlaps a certain area. Nothing to say there. I think you do really well. I'd like to see a bit more, honestly, because I think that's awesome to see. So you do great there. And maybe on the bandage on that front limb, the front left, what I'd recommend is maybe making that that central part slightly raised. Let's see if I can actually draw this here with my mouse this time. But maybe making that slightly raised, that's horrible, but hopefully you get what I mean. Thank you, Living Dead. But show a bit, don't be afraid to show a bit of that three-dimensionality to it, because the center of a Band-Aid is actually slightly raised up. So you can show a bit of that there. And you may be able to even pull a bit into your bandages as well to kind of show it's not part of it, but it's on top of it. If you want to show it's a bit tightened in, you can do that. But kind of show a bit of that three-dimensionality to your clothing form there. And I think that will help you better understand about how to roll your perspective, not only for your clothing, because it's not the clothing that matters in your perspective here, but with your wings, your spine, everything else. It's showing that perspective in the three-dimensionality. It's kind of what we're getting at. But outside of that, I'd say your facial expressions, I love them. I really like how you do muzzle designs. I've always liked how you done them because your art's fantastic. And yeah, I think you do a great job on your heads and your expressions. So continue to peel that out, because there's nothing I can say there. You just do a good job. And continue working on everything else. As for your landscaping, there was one point I wanted to pull out here with the cloud that Artie is standing on. Like, that's fantastic. You do a good job there. And you really show a good aeration of the cloud itself, but also of the mass of the pony standing on the cloud with those highs and lows in there. So nothing I can say with that. That front piece is fantastic. So continue doing your job there. The only other thing is, no, that's actually really all. Just keep doing what you're doing and continue to work on what we're talking about. I think you got made. But yeah, good to see you nonetheless again. It's been forever since we talked, so good job. Keep working on it.
All right. Let's move on to the next one then. Mr. Bricknowalls. Right below that. So they have submitted this actually 2 weeks in a row. They've had different stages of it. So they had a rough version of it, and then they had a colored version of it. And now it looks like they're going back and honing how they shade their objects, which is really cool. So do you have any questions to start off? Do you have any questions about this piece that haven't been resolved in the last ones?
Their comms are muted here. I know one of the questions they had was the wing insides were looking a bit too dark and all that. I know I said we'd talk to it once we got to their piece here, but I'm not sure about any other questions after that. Okay. I'll let Living Dead start so I can see if I can find the references I'm thinking about.
I'm just seeing if they have any questions first. Oh, there it is. Oh, there. I was just trying to get an understanding of how dark turn places should be to me. All right. So it's important to set how large your contrast is going to be, and that's based on the available lighting in the image. In this place, it looks like we're going from very, very, very bright. Well, not quite very, very. I'm just going to go bright, which is the brightest point being these highlights up here, to the darkest points being, no, that's somewhere in the back legs here. So there's our contrast range. Do I have a selector tool here? Eyedropper. Eyedropper doesn't exist, apparently. Maybe it does. Oh, it does. So darkest, brightest. Now we have everything in between these two, which, let's be honest, that's a big range to play with. Because that black is as close to black as you should ever go on an image. You shouldn't ever...
Painted black.
Sorry?
Song references painted black.
Yeah. We don't want to be flagged by a stranger.
This is true.
You gotta be careful. So if this is the range you've determined for the bright, we go and choose it, and we look at all the places we're going to drop that highlight on. So in this case, it'd be the tip of your hair that you've done up here, which it appears to be that same contrast, the edge of your wings, which don't appear to have that. So I'd go a bit brighter there. And same as the highlights dropped on the roots of the legs, or the front of the legs, the top of the mane here, top, any place where sun is directly going to hit and it's going to be forming a sort of sharper contrast that you're going for. So anything you want to really make pop. Yeah, in this case, Q Pencil Case is just rolling with this, just blast that thing in those highlights, because in the case of what you've done here, you've really rendered it up. So why not just go all the way out and just highlight the crud out of it?
Yeah, treat this like a gesture drawing, actually, I think would be your best way. You already have the design in, but one of the great things with gesture drawing is it's messy. It allows you just to get the components in there to understand them. And what you could do is you could take a copy of this piece and actually just take the color and just go blah, just go and just throw the color on there where you think it would feel and just mess around, make it messy. And then you can refine that as you go and understand, say, hey, oh, this looks right, or this makes sense. And as you look at other resources, you can just go, okay, scribble out, add in, do more from there. And gesture drawing should only take 30 seconds to a minute, maybe for complex things. For color like this, I'd say probably 30 seconds to a minute again. And just go over the entire thing with how you think it feels, knowing where your light source is. Yeah, I need a better way to organize all my references here. That way I can give the stuff I want to give easily.
Explain gesture drawing for color more? They aren't quite the same.
Yeah, so gesture drawing is different than color drawing. I'm not saying it's the same, but to take the concept of gesture drawing and bring that into color. So what I'm getting at here is you have your piece. Now, instead of let's say draw lines or draw actions or draw poses or draw where you think the lines feel and just scribble all out like you do that when you do gesture drawing, do that with color instead. Taking the color and taking the lights or the darks and put the darks where you feel they are, put the lights where you feel they are. Just be messy. Put it in there where you feel it feels best. Just like you would do with gesture drawing or drawing for silhouettes or things like that. And that could help you in understanding how the color, the lights and the darks are represented, especially when you take that piece that you've just done and go look at other pieces or other concepts for lighting. And so be messy, because your mind will make connections differently when you're just moving off of muscle memory basically and feeling than it does when you're just really getting into the nitty gritty, kind of just really spending forever on a piece compared to you're just doing it real fast and seeing what happens with what you get. It's a completely different way your mind makes connections, and that's what I'm getting at with doing with lights and darks and doing this with color. So it's not gesture drawing, don't get me wrong with that, but it is getting in there and just doing something and making it messy and not worrying about making it right, but where it feels right to you. So that could also help you in understanding where that light source will affect those areas. And kind of what I had alluded to earlier when I spoke about lighting in the dark areas. So one, identify where your light source is and where it's going downwards or upwards or from, because where your light source is coming from affects greatly where the light will hit and where the shadows will exist at. And you were talking about where that light and the dark is in those highlighted areas where the joints are and all that. Well, if your light's coming from, let's say, the top down, then another concept you need to be looking into is how thick the areas are, because the less thick they are, the more light that gets through. So i.e. the ends of the feathers will be lighter than where the bones are existing. I mean, if you look at your arm, you put your arm up to a very bright light, or your hand, you're going to see some light shining through. It's a similar thing, only this is feathers, not skin. And so you can take that concept with the feathers and bring that into the lights and darks, and that could help you in designing that too. Now, as you get to the joints are going to be different as well, because you're going to have different materials there with your anatomy. So you can look into how the darks will reside in those different areas, depending where your light is and where it exists right now. In the exact point here, is definitely a better indication right now as to where those joints exist and how dark those areas are to be. So follow that through for the rest of the pieces as to where your lights and darks can exist at. And that's all you really need to do. And you can do that, one, by doing some like color gesture drawing, and then two, by doing reference understanding and research, which can better help you with those areas as light hits. And I'm still trying to look for those resources right now. But yeah. But maybe one of the things I would say is, how did you, the question I would ask you here is, how did you start? Did you start with the lights, or did you start with the darks, or how did you start with your coloration here?
He's looking for you to repeat what you just asked.
Okay, so the question I was asking here is, how did you start doing your coloration for lighting, like your light sourcing and all that? Did you start with the highlights? Did you start with the darks? Like, how did you begin?
I think they say they think they started with the darks.
Okay. So I can't really speak to the darks as much as the lights, but what you can do is, depending on your light sourcing, you can start with different ideas and understandings. I know if it's landscapes, I could talk easier to this, but where is it? I got so many links up. I start with a baseline as to what your color is, and then knowing where the light sourcing is. I'm kind of confusing myself. I want to say this.
Take your time, figure it out.
Yeah, it's always confusing when we talk to this point here, but I'll try and get back with you on the point I'm trying to get on Rapid here. But overall, what I would say is, if you're going to start with the darks, I identify what your primary color is. If it's grayscale, identify which gray is going to be your normal color for the coat, and then go from there. Hues lighter and then hues darker, and utilize those as your lights and your darks. And so that way, wherever your light hits, it's actually at the same hue, but it's darkened or lightened depending on the coverage and the light source area. And then on top of that, I would say that if you're going to start with your darks, analyze where your darks are going to be, because your entire image is not just going to be dark. It's going to be one consecutive point, and then it's going to have those angles up and those angles down in the scales. So I would say, yes, start with the normal gray or something like that, and then add in your lights and your darks from there as to where they are being. And I would say, just really roughly put them in first. Don't actually try and do details yet, okay? Be real rough and say, this is the lights, this is the darks. Put them in, and this is where they are to be. And then from there, you can start to define them. But yeah, Q-Pencil guess is a good point there. And then depending on where your light sourcing is, on how far that dark will actually go into the image as well. Because in some points, that light will be really bright and it will cover most of the image or most of that portion. And then in others, it will be really dark and it will cover most of that too. So it's not just the light or highlighting it, it is how far along the image that will go to. So that's why it's good to start with one consecutive, like make this completely matte gray, one view, and then go from there and take your two shades of light and dark, one above like a few hues, and then one down a few hues, and then put those in the areas where you feel they are. And if you feel that there's more light in one area, improve how much there is. So don't just make it like a line, make it like a very big area. Like take a big brush stroke. And then from there, you can either blur that or mask that or do whatever you want to do it. And then you can put in your highlights afterwards, because highlighting, I would say, is also different from just your lights and your darks. So you shouldn't be putting just whites and blacks. Never just use white or black. Use lighter and darker shades of the hues that you're using. And that will help, one, in blending, but then two, that will also help you in understanding the transition around the image, rather than there being a complete white light. Because there's never just going to be a white light on something unless you have LEDs in the dark of the night or something like that. And even that, there's only a few ways you ever use that. So start with your hues, move forward from there, and just go for a rough construction first, because your rough construction is going to give you the best idea forward on how you dedicate yourself to creating those definitive shapes and lighting fixtures on your piece. I never can just explain this easily, because I don't know how to say it simply. Blasting. But I hope that made sense.
So there is quite a few resources online on rendering and rendering shading in that. We have some on our guides that you can find on our subreddit. You can also find some on the Discord. We really got to make those two the same. Anyway, check out the exterior and beginning guides, and it'll explain a lot on how to actually render and sort of figure out where light should be and where dark should be, and how to sort of get between the two.
Yeah, and take a look at that image as well as Rattlecat's shading and lighting tips that they did a long time ago. So that may help to better create that understanding of what I'm trying to say too, just really roughly. But yeah, just be real rough when you draw it in there to start out. You can always define it later, and you can blur it in, but be rough so that way you can define it to begin.
Build it up, build it up, build it up, build it up.
Exactly.
All right, any further questions? Any further art? If not, we're going to call it a day and see you guys next week.
Well, Strats doesn't have any art, so I think that may be it.
Yeah, we'll give him a minute.
Yeah, on the part of details here, I'll kind of, yeah, Strats, put it up. If you got art here, put it up. Love to see it. But I'll kind of jump in with what Rapper is saying there about details. Exactly right. Like, and this goes for everyone, including myself. Like, I'm not going to speak to anything that I have not done myself. Everything I've talked about, everything I speak to is something I've done myself. So, yeah, anyways, but don't worry about details as much. Your first goal is to just do it. Just get in there, be messy. Don't worry about being right or wrong, because once you start worrying about things being right or wrong, you're going to make mistakes. You're not going to be doing everything the way you want it. It's going to shudder, and it's going to just not be anything. So don't be afraid to make mistakes. Just start creating first. And then from there, do real rough gesture drawings. Do real rough three-dimensional views. Do perspective viewing. Do whatever. Be rough. Just draw it. It's your sketch layer. It's your construction layer. It's not supposed to be perfect. Once you get all that in, you get those thoughts in, then from there, your next goal is to start defining it. That does not mean detail. That means to define. That means to take your rough sketches and your creations that you have and to start defining that shape into something more, refining it into something more, into the actual visible view that you want to create. So take those roughs and make them something more. And then from there, then you can start detailing, then you can start adding, then you can start creating, then you can start really getting into the fine nitty gritties. You can add those things to the scenes, you can take them out. Whatever you want to do, you can do. But the original goal of that is to not worry too much about detailing or not worry too much about making it perfect. You're never going to be perfect. Get that out of your mind. That's it. No, quiet. Just do it first off and then define as you go from there. And that's all you got to do to start out.
Just waiting to see if Stratus posts the picture.
No worries. They said they had some art, so it'll be coming. But yeah, while Stratus is getting their images up here, does anyone have any other questions they want to ask or things like that while we have everyone here? And no, I don't do rocket science. No math questions or things like that. I can't do that. It's not my specialty here.
See you at BronyCon, Mr. Brickenwall.
Oh, definitely. You definitely have fun there.
Will do.
More rare potatoes, huh? Nice.
Yeah, if you have questions, feel free to ask them. If you have art you would like critiqued, just submit it to here and just be like, critique this, please.
And also, don't forget, we do have an Aggie up. So if you'd like to draw or like to work on some of these things that we've been talking to, or you have questions that you'd like to experiment on, you're welcome to bring that link up here. I believe Stranger has the link you can provide, and you can draw. Like, more than willing to do so. We'd love to see you all on there trying new things and really pushing yourself out. That's why we provide these Aggies when we do the streams. 1, so people can work on something together while they're learning. 2, to have fun. 3, to try new things, not just something out of the blue, that they can try new things as well. And 4, to work on the stuff that they want to work on, to try creating something new. So we're always up for that. We always look for more people to give a go at this, because like, we want to provide this to you as a service here, as something to help you improve, something to help you learn, something to get you more engaged in the art itself, and then be collaborative in it. So that way you're working with others and you're doing more than just sitting there alone. You can learn things and have fun with great people. And that's why we want to provide this to you. It's not just a stream. It's not just us working with one person or asking or answering questions, but it's a way that we can provide more services to you as an artist to help you have fun, to help you learn more, and to do so with people that want to and have the same desires as you. And that's why we desire to do it just as much. So you're more than willing to jump on, and we definitely encourage you every time to just jump on and have fun with us, because we want to help you get better. So don't be afraid to say hi or try something out.
Alright, so tips for drawing wings. References, 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 references. What do we mean by references? Go to the show, go on Google and be like, wing references, and you'll find some awesome one. Or just go find your favorite artist and what wings they've drawn.
Agreed. And speaking of references, I'm going to post a link in the Picardo again for everybody. So again, that's just my guide from all the different artists out there that have had things they've created or tutorials and all that. I'm just trying to compile and do a bit of write-up on each one and all that to give people as many resources as I can to help them learn more. And wings are one of the things on there. I know this one's more styled towards legs, but the wings are also on there, and you can view those artists to get more references and resources in their own legs. So it gives you a good start if you're looking for those references or those helpful tips and hints on how to do things. Start there. You can get a lot, and I've made it commentable. So if you have comments you want to leave on there on things that can be added or improved, do so. I will change stuff as we go. I want to provide the best things for you guys too. So don't be afraid to say something. We can always improve.
So you're going to take these references and you're going to look specifically over the wing ones. And you're going to be like, how is this constructed? And if we're to say, look at Elon's here, where they have the, I forget her name. She's a gun nut. Anyway, we can see we have those primaries, or the fluffiness. What's the fluffiness called? It has a name, I swear. It's the marginal quivets. Sure. And then it has the primaries and secondaries shoved under. For all sorts of the longer feathers. And they've just built theirs up with two main bones. We can see the one bone up across the top here, the really long one, and then the second one moving down to the shoulder. And that's essentially how they've built it up. They've just built it up by laying more feathers over top of each other. Who's the person who came up with the idea of this channel? It was a joint project between a few of us. A few of us participate in this every single week. We've been going for 83 weeks now. And the subreddit MLP Drawing School on Reddit has been going around since the end of the first season of MLP. So if you have the art you'd like to submit to us, feel free. We'll critique it. If not, we're gonna call it a day.
We're on here every Tuesday, same time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for wings, the best thing to think about is the bone structure. If you're going to start out with the wings, be thinking of the structure as to where they start and then where they cut off, because it's largely a bunch of angles in there when you hit the joints. So look at the structure, look at the bones, look at the joints, and from there you can define the wing structure as you go out. And that's really the major goal. And if you can figure out how those joints pivot and move, that's going to give you the momentum and the movement of the wings. And then work on your perspective with that. And that's really all you got to do. I know that makes it sound super simple, and it's not. It's not simple, but it's a starting point. And so look at those anatomical references for how wings are constructed. And that's going to give you a good starting point on how you can create that.
Do you have any questions offhand on this picture? Or is it just... What's the problems you're having with it? Oh god, the rotatoes are attacking. Who drew in all the rotatoes? Come on!
I'll give you a question on that one. I'm pretty sure we know the answer.
You don't like the highlights. Probably because there really aren't any. You have... that's not a fair thing to say. You have highlights, but they're very, very dim. You haven't really given yourself a large contrast to work with. Up the contrast on this. What I mean by that is you have your darkest here. Whoop! Dunk. This is your darkest areas of that orange, and then this is your brightest areas of that orange. So now if we go and compare the two, we can see how much contrast you've actually given yourself on the extents of this. So we get to use the same amount of contrast for everything else. If we go look at your wings, we have this all the way down to, I think that would be about the darkest over here. Somewhere maybe in there. That is not even close to the same contrast. Alright. So, what I'd like to see you do on this one, go ahead and grab your blues here. We're gonna use your main used blue. We're gonna make it darker. Actually make it darker. We're gonna kick that contrast up. We're gonna have less of this entire saturated highlights. That might do. Spacing, size. It doesn't have. Oh my gosh! It now has a watercolor. Sort of.
Yeah, the goals of your lights and your darks that you do with your contrast and your brights and all that, they're complementing your structure already. Especially when you get to lights, strats, it's going to complement what you have. And as you come around, it blends into the piece. Now you're doing that. It's just that you need to develop that further. And that's what we're getting at here, is develop that further, bring out those colors more, make them more bounding per se, because there's going to be more to it. Flesh them out more. And yeah, let me jump back on that.
No, we're just building up the color variants now. So if CPC is just putting in where all the shadows are going to be for the contrast, they're just building it up. So we're just going to keep putting that in. And we're going to keep building our way to the highlight. The highlight shouldn't completely blanket them. It should just be points of that highlighting. If you go stand in the sun or go shine a bright light from a distance onto your hand, you're going to see that edges pop, and then it fades inwards, like it fades towards the dark. And that's what you're trying to do with that highlight. You're trying to make just some of those edges really, really pop. Anyway, you're just going to keep building up. My suggestion would be then to reduce the amount of highlights you have and increase the amount of shadow you have, so it's a more mid-tone as your largest area. So the mid-tone being the standard dash blue. It's going to be more encompassing of this image. Come on. Alright, so this watercolor... Oh, I see what it's doing. It's being a punk. Anyway. Apparently this program, I'm still not familiar with the new updates. Use a pre-made color chart. The pre-made color charts are nice because they tell you what the colors can be for the starting instances, and then you're going to augment that based on what colors are in the environment. Because light is based on the rest, or the color that you are perceiving is based on the color that the light's reflecting back to you. So you have, if you're to go into like evening where the red is really lighting up the area, everything gets a red hint, a red hue to it. It's all saturated with this red color. So now this blue is more of a purple because it's got red added into it. You know what I mean? Hopefully.
Here, I'm going to add a link into Picardo again. I added it earlier, but this is exactly what he's talking about. So reference this for what he's saying.
All right. So doping with that color with the color of the environment is very important. In this case, I mean, we're daytime, at least that's what it appears, and there's really no other color around beyond the standard sky blue, so don't worry about that too much. You're still going to have that base blue that dash is a good start. And then just take that and adjust it to how bright or how dark the scene is, assuming that blue is dash in normal lighting. And so we have CPC here building up your shadows more and more. And she's done some hard shadows, she's done some soft shadows, and she's just building them up. This is how you should be approaching yours. You can try and use the watercolor. It has soft edges to it. If you've updated your pick art or your draw pile, it'll have a watercolor brush now, apparently. But it's responding weird. It's picking up the colors above it, which isn't really standard to watercolor unless if it's wet. So, Stratus, are you going to take this picture and try and up the contrast on it a bit? Because you can see even our little flailing doodles on here, the difference it's made to this picture alone. If you're to spend 20-30 minutes just with a semi-hard brush and just work in some of these shadows, some of this contrast, this picture is going to pop awesomely. You're going to really help drive out some of these shapes that you have for the muzzle, the ear, the wings, things like that. All right. And I think we're done.
Well, I do have one more point I want to say for this image here.
By all means.
All right, by all means. So the one thing that comes to mind, Strats, I do want to also highlight on, pun intended that time, is with the hair, as well as the rainbow itself. So one, I want to know where your light source is. I mean, I can tell from everything that we've added in on how your light source is probably coming from that top left area of your image. You can define that in your landscaping and the clouds around you, around RD and all that. Don't be afraid to show that. I want to see more of that here because your landscaping looks real flat to me. Not just in being a 2D image, but then also in the lighting. Like it just looks like a really flat color, and that's all. Now, right? Show that a bit more. Show what it can be a bit more. Show that light sourcing. Show that color from the surrounding landscape. You can show a lot there, and that's going to help flush out your character as well with everything that we've been talking about. So show those colors in the rainbow a bit more. I'm assuming that rainbow is very colorful, especially being probably like a sonic rainbow or something along that line. Like it's going to be color. So don't be afraid to show those colors a bit more. You do that with your blues and your violets really well, but I rarely see any red. I don't really see that brightness until you get almost to the tail behind Rainbow Dash. I see like a really strong rainbow there, but I don't see any else from the rest of the rainbow. Don't be afraid to show that. Don't be afraid to show a bit more of the greens from the landscape right there with the housing belowhand. Don't be afraid to show a bit more of the scenery. And then third off, don't be afraid to show more of the hair here. So that yellow is probably the lightest color in RD's view. Personally, for me, I'd like to see you bring a bit more color, just like that rainbow right behind her is. That rainbow is probably your most colorful piece in this image. I want to see you bring that color into the rest of the image. There's no reason you shouldn't or you don't need to. Like, do that. I get where you're trying to go with the color being less and less as you're getting farther and farther, but you don't have to definitively do that. Just because it's farther does not mean there's going to be less color. Especially this being Equestria, there's probably going to be more color as you get closer, yes, but there's going to be color throughout the rest of it. So with her hair, show that color. There's going to be a lot of color. Show that contrast. Show that definition and that volume rather than it almost being like a matte, flat, and that's it. kind of reminds me of the episodes where they lose all their color, and they lose their cutie marks or whatever. They lose their color and all that, and discorded. It reminds me of that a bit. So if you're showing this pony flying through the sky with all this action, now I'm thinking of reading Rainbow. Show that, and you can emphasize that in the color, not just in the contrast and the brightness of the wings and the body, but in your hair. Show that in the hair. Show that in the eyes. Really bring that out, because that color, that livelihood, that action, that's going to play a definitive part in showing and conveying the scene that you want to convey, and then bring that into your landscape around you, and you got it made. So yeah. Well, no worries. We got lazy or whatnot. Don't worry about it here. But yeah, just don't be afraid to try those ideas. And the more color, the more life that you can bring into your piece, the more understanding that you can give to the viewer, and bring more life to it. That's what you want to do. So bring more life into your piece here. And the higher that you can do that, the more that you can create from it. So that's all I got to say there. But otherwise, just follow that, and yeah, you got made. All right, do we have any other questions?
So far, not yet.
No more rarity potatoes?
Always gotta have more rare potatoes. But there's not even a single rare potato on our Aggie. Come on, guys. Pick up the rare potatoes.
Don't be afraid to draw something. Like I said, the best way that you can improve is to do it. So get out there, do it. You can't buy it, but you can trade it in for experience points. So if there aren't any final questions here, then the final piece I want to say here is with BCon coming up for most people, or GalaCon and all those other cons that have happened or are happening, be safe, have fun, and don't be afraid to say hello to people, get in some drawing circles with everyone else. Like, the best way that you can learn is by doing, but then also doing together with others. So don't be afraid to jump in drawing circles. I know when I was there, we'd sit down with just a number of random people. We'd have our sketchbooks with us. We just draw things, draw ideas, draw things for different people, take pictures, have fun with that. Go to the vendors hall, walk around, see all the amazing art that people have done and all those who are vending there, and just enjoy the awesome experiences. Talk to the artists there and ask them a few questions about, hey, what'd you do? How'd you get to where you are? What would you ask the question, what do you know that I should know? What would you recommend I know? Because you learn something from that. And it allows you to engage with someone who has the experience, who can translate that understanding to you, at least in starting or improving what you have. And don't be afraid to bring something as an example. Say, hey, I love what you've done. I've watched you for a long time. And as creepy as that may sound, I have this piece here. Now, I wonder if you could take just a quick minute look and just tell me, what could I do to improve? What should I know so that way I can improve this one and all my future works? I'm sure that most people would say, hey, I'm more than willing to help you. I'm more than willing to give you a piece of my mind, because the best way that you can learn is from others. Don't be afraid to stand out of the crowd and say something. That's the best way I learned, from doing that and just being the stubborn person I am, just because why not? It's better to be a bit crazy or stand out and be a bit different than just go on by and miss an opportunity because you weren't willing to stand up and do something or take a little risk. I can guarantee you things will be fine. What's the worst someone can say? No, it's not the end of the world. That will be in 1,000 years there when Cthulhu arises, because Living Dead here lives immortally and it starts the cult there and all that. So I don't know. Jokes aside, but yeah, you have no worries asking questions. Heck, I got to sit down with Andy Price and we talked about art for a while, and I learned a lot from him. I got to sit down with Sistra, and the two of us had an amazing time talking, and I learned a lot. And heck, you can do that with so many other artists. I've done that with every con or everything I've gone to. Is be different. Be willing to stand out and ask questions. Be willing to go up to all those artists that you admire and you sit looking at and just say, hey, I love what you've done. If you have a minute, I'd love to ask you a question or two, if that's all right. Take those times to try, because oftentimes you'll learn so much from that, and you can do your own art. And then when you have people come to you and do the same and ask, hey, I love what you've done. I watched you for years. What can I do to get better with what I have? Then you have those memories about what you did when you started, about the questions you asked and those that you looked up to. And you can say, hey, this is what I did. This is what I learned. And this is what you can do to improve. And I'd love to see what you do in the future. And then so on and so forth. That's how you get better. So don't be afraid to try new things. Don't be afraid to take new opportunities. Don't be afraid to say something, to be different, to stand out from the crowd, and just to have fun. And that's all you need to do. If you're looking for tips to get better, that's how you get better. So I could say plenty more, but I think that about sums it up. So have fun at the conventions. Enjoy VCon tremendously. Have fun, especially for the people who aren't going to be there. And just enjoy the time, because there's seldom good times like this in the world anymore. So have fun. And that's all I got to say.
All right, and with that, we will see you all next week. So long, and thanks for all the fish.
Take care.